Welcome to TOUSSI Talks. I'm your host Arash TOUSSI, and in this week's episode, I sat down with Arian Beyzaei, Vice President of Enriched Academy, a financial education company, to discuss some general but important guidelines to achieving financial freedom. Arian does a great job of simplifying matters of money and investing for anyone to understand. Please do remember that topics discussed within this episode are not to be construed as financial advice. Always do your own research. Neither I nor Arian are financial advisors. With that said, until next week, I do hope you enjoyed this episode and thank you for tuning in. Learn more at enrichedacademy.com. This broadcast is brought to you in part by bitcoinbasics.org, helping you get started with Bitcoin.
Guys, my name is Arian. I am 22 years old. I'm the vice president and a partner of a company called Enriched Academy. So basically, we are financial literacy made fun, right? For kids, for adults, really teaching people about money, everything you didn't really learn in school that you should have about money. And that's really what we do.
Beautiful. Fantastic.
Yeah.
And how long have you been doing that for now, Arian?
Yep. So it's been almost 5 years. The company's been around for about 6 years. So for myself, I travel right across the country doing presentations and lunch and learns. I really focus towards teaching entrepreneurs how to get better with their money as well as students. So at the company, we're doing a lot of cool stuff. We were featured on the show Dragon's Den. We actually did a deal with Jim Treliving and Bruce Croxton. We're the #1 deal Jim Treliving has ever done in the history of the show, which is pretty cool. It's been 13 years, and he's done a lot of deals.
Is he the gentleman that owns Boston Pizza?
Yep, Boston Pizza and Mr. Lube. Yep.
Okay, nice.
And so, yep, we've also partnered up with the CFL. We have partnerships with TransUnion, CDI Career College, police associations. So we're really on a big mission. We're really trying to get this topic of money out there, get everyone learning about it in a non-boring way, in a way that's fun, it's entertaining. It's not like you're in school learning like a lecture, so we try to keep it fun.
That's awesome. What do you think is one of the biggest challenges you have when you're trying to speak about education, trying to take a topic that isn't so exciting sometimes and can be daunting to most people? What are some of the challenges that you find when trying to teach people?
Yeah, no, for sure. I think there's a couple big challenges. The first big challenge, I think a lot of people, when it comes to money, they think it's so complex and they get overwhelmed. Like, oh, Arian, I can't do this. Like, I didn't study finance. I didn't do well in math. And that's just the farthest thing from the truth. It's almost like the industry has designed their advertisement to make it complicated for people so that they say, oh, I can't do it. I have to go get a financial advisor that charges me 2.5% MER. Yeah. And so, no, you can do it. You can. Yeah. But the challenge is, how do you strip it to make it very simple? How to create a system with your money so that you're not spending 3-4 hours every week managing it, that it's almost like this system that you created. And it does take time. Like, this isn't, you're talking about financial independence. It's something that the top 5% get to experience, right? It is going to take some time for you to go out there and learn. But the beautiful thing is, once the system and once the foundation is set, you're good to go. Like, you're off to the races. So building that foundation takes time, but once it's built, you're good to go.
Okay, brilliant. What would you say, speaking of the foundation, while we're on that topic, what would you say are some basic core principles that each person should know when it comes to either both growing their money and protecting their money?
For sure. Yeah, no, that's a great question. Yeah. So the biggest thing that people don't understand is you need to make a lot of money to be wealthy. That is the biggest myth that people have when it comes to money, that, oh, Arian, I'm not saving enough because I don't make enough right now. I'm making $50,000, but I'm living paycheck to paycheck. I'm not saving any money. What should I do? And in their head, they're thinking, oh man, if I just made $100,000, then I can start saving. And it's so far from the truth. It's not how much you make. It's what you do with that money. That's so important. And if you can't live within what your means, then I promise you, if that's what you're thinking right now, then you're a lost cause. Like, you just are. Because I've met people that are making $700,000 a year, right? Top realtors in Vancouver and Toronto. They're making all this money, but they're still living paycheck to paycheck. They're 2 years behind on their taxes. They're in debt, making 700 grand a year. And it's not because they don't make enough. It's because they have no clue how to manage the money they make. Their spending is out of control. So the principle number one to me is learn how to manage what you have, right? And don't look to make more money as an outlet. Yes, making more money is great, but you got to learn how to manage what you have. The second thing, like as I mentioned before, automate everything. Your finances need to be automated. Everyone is busy. Like you guys have things to do. You have a job. You don't have time to go sit 2 hours a day to manage your finances. So it's pretty cool. I'll give you guys a perfect example. I was on a vacation, I think it was last month, and it was the same time that I got paid. And it was pretty cool just to see what happened because I'm on vacation. I'm enjoying my time. And by the way, I didn't invent this stuff. This is all stuff that's out there, right? It's not like this is my brilliant plan. Like, no, it's not. Like, I wish I was bright enough to come up with it. But the coolest thing happened was I'm on vacation and I'm just enjoying myself and I get paid, right? And then my bills automatically got paid. So my Rogers bill, everything, insurance taken care of. I didn't have to do anything. And then automatically that money got transferred into my retirement accounts and there. Good to go. And so, so you literally don't need to do anything. And that's really the reason I use that example is because, you should have your money set up that as soon as you get paid, it goes in the right directions. It's going in the right places. You shouldn't have to manually go do that. I think one of the most expensive terms when it comes to money is I'll just do it myself, right? Oh, no, Arian, like, don't worry. I'll just do the transfers myself. And it just doesn't happen, right? You forget. It's painful. For some reason, it's painful, like transferring money to yourself. It's like, it's still your money, but it's going from your checking account into your TFSA, right? It's painful for a lot of people.
It is.
So automate your finances. That's kind of the second principle.
I like
that. And number three, I would say, you know what? Like this might be a little bit high level for some people, but stick with index funds or ETFs, right? To really grow your money, for the most part, stay away from mutual funds and take a look at index funds or exchange traded funds, right? Try to control your fees as much as possible. And those are a big one. And you got to remember, this is a long-term game. I think that's another really important principle because when I look at my money, every week, month I log in, it's boring, man. It sucks, right? And that's the challenge with building wealth. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. And the challenge is people love the sprint. Like when you go watch the Olympics, it's amazing. I forgot the stat, but how many more people watch the 100-meter dash than a 6-hour marathon? No one watches a 6-hour marathon, right? People like to watch that 10-second, boom, 10 seconds, and people are sprinting. People love that. We live in an instant gratification world where everything is now minute made. Like you have everything now, right? And the challenge of building wealth, exact opposite. It literally takes decades to build wealth, right? And so being patient and sticking to the long term is everything. Because when it comes to building wealth, I know people might not be able to see this, but it's almost like it's compound interest. That's what it is. And for a long time, compound interest is boring. Like it stays the same, but all of a sudden what's going to happen with your wealth, you're going to reach a point where it really starts to accumulate and it really starts to compound. But the reason no one gets there is they're not patient to get to that point, right? But if you are patient and you have identified, what you have to do and when that point's going to be, it starts to get really exciting when it comes, like super, super exciting. So
those are all good points. And you know what, Arian, I think that sometimes it's just good to pull out the calculator and do some mathematics. Like just pull out the calculator, do some math, crunch some numbers, see your potential. I find that that's just so helpful in making some decisions and helping visualize the future. Like mathematics needs to be done more often.
Oh yeah, and making math fun. Like I think that's the challenge right now. It's boring. Like here's an example I love using, and I use it a lot in my kids' presentation when I do to like kids to teach them about money. And I ask them, and like I say, okay, this is an example of compound interest. If you took a penny and every day that penny doubled, right? So day one, it's 1 penny. Day two, it's two. And then day three, it's 4 pennies, 8 pennies, 16, 32 pennies. How much would you have after 31 days of that doubling, right?
Mhm.
And a lot of kids are like, I don't know, like $20. It's like $3 million. It's crazy. It's a penny.
I love that
It's
exercise. Yeah,
it's insane.
it's true.
And but when you look at it, it's so interesting to look at the chart as you were talking about the math, because for the first 20 days, that
Right.
penny, it's only at like $100.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. And then the next 10 days, from
Mhm.
day 20 to day 30 or day 31, it
Mhm.
goes from like $100 or $1,000 to like $3 million.
Yeah.
And it just shows you once again the power of compound interest, that your wealth is going to come from the latter half of your investment, not the
Mhm.
first couple
Right.
of years, right?
Right.
So yeah,
Right.
having that long-term approach is tough, but it's critical.
It
Critical.
is. It is. And I think that the long-term approach really is something that even I myself am trying to instill in everything that I do.
Right.
You know, it's no longer a 5-year time frame. It's not a 10-year time frame. I'm trying to look at things 20 years from now, 30 years from now. And
Yep.
I think if we all just adapt a long-term mentality in general, I think
Hmm.
that that's a brilliant way to move forward. And yeah, sticking to having a sets of principles that you can really stick to. Like, can you talk about that? Can you talk about the importance of having principles? Why should one have principles? Why should one stick to principles when it comes to, dealing with their money?
Oh, you have to have principles. And the reason why you need, a great point, the reason why you need to have principles is because of human behavior. It's the only reason. We're going to make mistakes, right? Humans, you're going to make, I've made mistakes when it comes to investing. And to go back on principles that you have is everything. I'll give you an example. Like, one of the principles I have is, never put more than 10% into high risk investments. Never, right? So 10% of my portfolio cannot go into high risk investments. And I caught myself this summer, right? Almost breaking that rule. I actually did break it, and I had to like go back to my principle. Like, I broke that rule. I
Yeah.
remember I put, I think it was 5% into like some cryptocurrency. I had another 2 to 3% in like some other very high risk ETF,
Hmm.
and then I had an opportunity to invest in a startup company.
Hmm.
Um, and that would have taken my 10% to 20%. So
Ah,
I found myself during the summer, 20% of my money was on very high risk investments, and I had to
wow.
fix that, right?
Wow.
So
Hmm.
principles are everything.
Hmm.
And what's going to happen in the market? Another principle I have:
Hmm.
when the markets crash,
Hmm.
continue to invest, no matter what. And I
Wow.
haven't gone through it yet, but I can imagine it's going to be a very, very difficult time when
Hmm.
the markets do crash.
Hmm.
I have to follow that principle. I'm not going to want to, but you have to, right? So
Hmm.
even when the markets crash, if I'm following my principles, I should be continuing to invest, because when it goes down and it's at rock bottom, I'm still investing. And then when it takes off again, then you bought all these shares at a discount, right? So
Exactly. Buy
yeah.
when there's blood in the streets, right?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It's like
No,
Warren Buffett, right? To
yeah,
be fearful when others are greedy. Be greedy, man. Be greedy when others are fearful. Like, it's a
yeah.
good time.
You're right. And it's so funny how with investing that so many things just like that seem counterintuitive. It's like, hey, I don't want to catch a falling knife. What do you mean buy it at
Yeah.
5 cents? It was $5, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that's where, as you say, like that's where like true wealth is really built. That's
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Warren Buffett right now is not happy. He wants the markets to crash.
yeah.
You
Most
bet that.
rich people do.
Oh yeah. Oh, I would want them. I look at the real estate market. I hope
Yeah,
it crashes,
I
right?
know.
Like,
I
in
know.
Toronto, it's going crazy, and it
Yeah,
would be a really cool opportunity for our generation
it would.
to take advantage of a crash. It really would.
It really would. And like, speaking of that, I mean, I keep an eye on the economy very much, and I am concerned of an imminent major
Yep.
recession triggered by the failure of fiat currency. Uh, do you believe the same? And what's your thoughts on the current economic state? Where are we
Yeah.
headed?
No, that's a great question. You know what? I used to play this game a lot. I used to be very, very so much attention would be on the economy. What's going on? Say fiat currency. I bought $20,000 worth of silver when I was like in high school because I read a couple books and watched YouTube video, and I lost like 70% of that, right? So,
Yeah.
you know what? Like 100%, I'm aware of what's going on,
Hmm.
but I continue to follow my principles. I still invest heavily in the markets. I'm still very bullish, right? If the markets do crash, totally cool, right? I'm prepared for that too.
Hmm.
Um, but it's tough with the news, man. Like it's just like there's so, if you turn on CNN, there's pessimism everywhere. Oh, this is happening. The Middle East is in a crisis. You know, Donald Trump is going to get impeached. Like there's so much noise.
Hmm.
And if you listen to that, the challenge is you get scared and you don't invest. You put that money in a savings account. I remember, I'll give you an example. 6 years ago, or 5 years ago, I did a presentation at a real estate office. I was talking about the markets. And this lady came up to me. She said, Arian, like the markets are going to crash. I'm going to keep all my money in cash. And then when they do crash, then I'll buy, right? That was 6 years ago. The past 6 years has been like, we're getting like a 10% return each year in like a balanced portfolio for
Yeah.
the past 6 years. So she could have doubled her money, right? And that, but the challenge is people are still saying the same thing. Like, oh, Arian, man, the markets are risky. I'm just going to stay in cash. Well, who knows? This can go on for another 10 years or it could crash tomorrow. So you got to be prepared for both, right?
Yeah.
And so the news, I honestly try not to listen too much of it because it has gotten me in trouble
Hmm.
in terms of selling investments instead, in terms of buying silver, buying different things. So I'm definitely aware of what's going on, but I have a principle to not let the news judge my principles I'm investing, right? So
Hmm.
I'm betting on Canada. I'm betting on the U.S. I'm betting on the world over the next 100 years. I think we're going up, all right? And I'm not going to bet against America or Canada or the world. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Awesome. What would you recommend that young people can begin to do to start growing their wealth? What are some things that they can, either cut out or implement?
Yeah, so real tangible stuff. Like number one is, I almost don't want to say it because it's so cheesy, right? But it's like it's self-education is everything, right? And there's a good quote by Warren Buffett. He says, "Don't learn from your mistakes, learn from other people's mistakes." And I love that quote, right? Because when it comes to money, I promise you, people have made every mistake in the world, and you don't need to go out there and experience those mistakes. You can
Right.
go learn from them. There's some mistakes that are good to learn yourself, but man, like I'm saying, hey, listen, I put all my eggs in one basket, bought all this silver. That was a dumb mistake. Don't do that. And so hopefully someone listening, when they come across an opportunity, maybe instead of putting 20,000 in, they'll put in 2,000. So or 200. They won't put all their money into it.
Hmm.
So yeah, I would say yes, self-education. Just read a couple books when it comes to money.
Hmm.
And the other thing is to build wealth. Like get curious about your money 100%, and then you're just gonna have to model success. Model people that are where you want to be,
Hmm.
and do what they're doing. Right, and it doesn't need to be that complicated.
Hmm.
What industry are you in? Oh, you know what, Arian? I'm in photography. I want to be a photographer. Okay, fantastic. Um, who are the 5 people you really look up to? I don't know, like these 5 people. Okay, great. Go follow what they're doing and just copy and replicate it with them. Same
Right.
thing when it comes to building wealth. Hey, Arian, I want to be financially free at 40.
Hmm.
Okay, go find the top 5 people that are financially free at 40, and I'm sure you could find it on the internet, and just go read their blogs, read whatever they're doing. Just copy them. Copy what they're doing. Oh, okay, this person is saving 30% of each dollar they make. They're
Hmm.
living at home until they're 26. They're, you know, their credit
Not,
card.
yeah, they're not stacking up credit card debt.
Exactly. Their
Hmm.
credit limit is 500 or whatever it might be. Whatever they're doing, just copy them, right? So
Right.
I would say, yeah, for young people, it's tough because here's a challenge with young people. I see this with my friends
Hmm.
is a lot of young people say, oh, you know what, Aaron, I don't need to worry about money. I'll just wait. I'll take care of it later. It's not that urgent. It doesn't hurt that much. So I'll just do it when I'm 30 or when I'm 40. The amount of people, Arash, I've met, man, that are 50, 60 years old that are doing well.
Hmm.
And I asked them, what's the one thing you could go back and change?
Hmm.
And they're like, Arian, if I could go back and if I could just start sooner, I
Hmm.
wish I started in my 20s instead of my 30s. I'd have double the amount of money I have saved. It
Yeah.
would be a game changer.
Yeah.
It really would.
You're
But the
right.
challenge is, so those people say, I wish I would go back earlier. The people that are our age are like, I'll just wait a little longer, right? So it's almost like this discrepancy. It's almost like we need to go live a day in the life of ourselves when we're 60 and see what it's like so that we could go back at time and take it more seriously.
We
So
don't learn until it's too late, eh?
it is. And you know what it is? It doesn't hurt.
Mhm.
That's the problem. There's no pain in our life right now. Everything is fine, right? You don't need the pain comes when you're 55 years old, working at a job that you don't want to, living paycheck to paycheck, 2 years behind on your taxes, waking up stressed about money, not being able to pay for your kids' soccer because you didn't manage. That's when the pain comes. But at that point, it's too late. Running out of money during retirement. You know how many Canadians run out of money during retirement? It's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah.
That's when it's painful. It's not painful now. People are in their 20s or 30s. So there's no
Yeah.
pain right now. So
Right. You're
that's a
able,
challenge.
you're able-bodied and you can get the work done. You're not, it's that long-term mentality, just not thinking in the long term. And I mean, I think you're right. You're absolutely right. That's probably the biggest advantage that young people have, is that they have time.
Yeah.
The time does equal money. And as you said before, with compound interest, for example, it's those extra couple years, that's where the edge is, you know? So,
100%.
do you have any great literature or resources that you think people should check out for people who are starting to learn about managing their own finances?
For sure, for sure. So you know what? A couple books I like, really like for beginners is the challenges Canadian books as well as American books. A good Canadian book is um, Millionaire Teacher by Andrew Hallen. That's a really good book. Number two, I Will Teach You to Be Rich by Ramit Sethi is another really, really good book. It just breaks it down. It makes it simple. If you want something a little bit more advanced, by far my favorite book of all time when it comes to money is Money Master the Game by
Tony Robbins.
Tony Robbins. That book, I mean, like, if you want a lot of detail, it's unbelievable. Like, he interviewed 50 of the top financial minds in America. The
Mhm.
challenge with that book, it's hard to apply the principles to Canada
Right.
because he talks about 401ks, American ETFs, but I've
Yeah,
been able to do my research. But that's a great book. Um,
it is. I agree. He
yeah, that's
also he also wrote a little bit more simplified version that I really, really
Unshakable.
loved it. Loved it.
Yeah,
I
really
think
good
that
book.
one is very universal and applicable and touches on the principles, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, well, that book just teaches you how not to be scared of a market crash and how to actually get excited for it, right? Like
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
really what it does. Because the challenge people right now are scared. They're scared if the markets do crash, and he talks about how to prepare for it.
yeah. Do you still believe in precious metals as a hedge against inflation?
Precious metals, I do. Right, the challenge with precious metals and the cool thing that you can do, to get really technical, you can actually, I always thought that there was an advantage to owning the actual silver, the gold, or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
You can actually buy index funds or ETFs that own all these different types of precious metals in this one ETF for very little fee. And so you're saving money on storage, you're saving money on transaction fees, you're saving money on the currencies being different. So yeah, you definitely want to do your own research. The biggest thing is asset allocation. You need to have a really solid asset allocation based on where you are. For me, 100% of my money is in the markets,
Mhm.
100%. I have very little, if any, money outside my emergency fund. None.
Right.
Because if the markets crash, I don't need that money. I'm okay. Right. But
Mhm.
if someone is getting closer to retirement, they can have a lot of money in the markets and riskier investments. They need a lot of their money in fixed income bonds, right? Like the boring stuff that's going to get you like a 3, 4, 5% return. But if the
Mhm.
markets do crash, it's not going to crash with the market. So you got to really sit down and you see, like, that's the challenge. Like when you start talking about these, what the area, what's asset allocation? Like, this is too complicated. I can't do it. Like, I assure you, asset allocation, all it is how's your money divided? For me, I'll give you my example. This is how my money is divided. 25% of my money is in America, 25% in Canada, 25% in international, and 25% in emerging markets. That's it, right? It's very simple. Over the past 5 years, done pretty well. It's like a 11, 12% return,
Yeah,
right? And so,
that's
and
great.
it's simple. But if the
Yeah.
markets crash, I'm going down 50+%,
Right.
right? So you have to account for that stuff,
Yeah,
right? So,
for sure.
yeah, and that's that easy. There's 4 ETFs you buy. You could go to any online trading platform, buy it. I personally use questrade.com. You can use CIBC, TD, Scotiabank, even credit unions do it. So, and it takes literally 2 minutes to do. You might need to watch a tutorial, like Questrade tutorial, how to buy and sell, and that will take you 10 minutes. Actually buying the securities literally takes me 2 minutes to do every month, right?
Yeah,
So once again, if you think, oh, it's too complicated, I need like someone to help me out, it's not bad to get help, definitely not, but I for 90% of people, you could do it on your own,
yeah.
right? So
I'd have to agree with that. I'd have to agree
yeah.
with that. Is there any specific emerging markets that you feel comfortable speaking about that you're interested in?
Yeah, so like of course I'm not a financial advisor. I cannot say
Neither am
um
I.
yeah, so like I hear suggestions, right? So
Sure.
these are not ones I actually buy myself. So the way that index funds works and ETFs, the reason why they're so beautiful is because, for example, let's say US. When I say I'm putting 25% of my money in the US, like what the heck does that mean? Does that mean I'm going buying a piece of property in the US? Like,
Mhm.
does that mean I'm buying a share of Amazon? Like, what does that mean? What an ETF is, it allows you to invest and get broad exposure to a specific country, industry, or sector. So, for example, in the US, there's something called the S&P 500. This is an index that tracks the performance of the 500 largest and most successful American companies. It's pretty amazing. Like companies like Apple, General Electric, Microsoft, Amazon, all these great companies you could buy, or you are in this index. And so a lot of people are like, oh, Arian, like, why don't I just buy the index? Well, first of all, you can't, right? You have to go and individually buy each of those 500 companies. And to give you an example, Berkshire Hathaway, which is Warren Buffett's company, is in that S&P 500. I think it's number 5.
Mhm.
To buy one share of that company is like 200-300 grand, right? So you need so good luck with that.
Yeah.
So the cool thing about an index fund allows you to own a piece of the S&P 500 without actually, through one fund, through buying one single fund for a very low fee. You now have exposure to 500 of the greatest and most successful American companies, which is unbelievable, and that's revolutionary. And the fee is literally rock bottom. So to answer your question about the emerging markets, I honestly have no clue. I don't know. Is it going to be India, China, or Africa? I have no clue, right? So what I do is I buy this ETF, and inside that ETF, there's all these different emerging markets. So if China doesn't work out, well, you know what? There's still India. If that, so I have one ETF that tracks the emerging markets, and that's the beautiful thing about these ETFs. Imagine you own that American one, and let's say tomorrow Apple goes bankrupt
Mhm.
for whatever reason. Probably won't happen. Well, if Apple goes bankrupt, well, you're okay. You have 499 other companies keeping you up, as
Yeah.
opposed to putting all your money into Apple, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it kind of gives you that diversification, which I like.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Cool. Yeah, I'd have to agree. I mean, it is a great way to do um manage your funds much less through an
yeah.
ETF or an index, right?
Without as much research,
Yeah.
man, like if you want to go study which country is going to be emerging, like
Mhm.
100% all on you. But that is a full-time job. There's literally people that get paid millions of dollars a year to go find those opportunities, right? And to
Absolutely.
like, and it is possible. I'm not saying it's not, but if
No.
you don't have the time, and I like to call myself a passive investor, right? 10 to 15 minutes a month, that's it,
Mhm.
right? So, and that's what most people will be, right?
Mhm.
So if you do want to go do your own research, great. Most people probably don't have the expertise, and honestly, I don't have the expertise. How am I supposed to know which country is going to emerge, right?
Yeah.
And uh,
Yeah.
right? Who knows? Who
You don't
knows?
know. You don't know. You gotta do your own learning. You gotta keep an ear to the beat and just try and make the best judgment possible. Honestly,
100%,
if you knew the
100%.
answers, you'd be a quadrillionaire, right? Like
A
people.
100%, yeah. And you know what? That's the beautiful thing about these ETFs. They protect you if you're wrong. And oh, you know what? If I was wrong about Apple, well, I don't have all my money in Apple, right? I have 499 other companies.
Mhm.
So Yeah, being an active investor is very different from being a passive investor. I'm 100% passive, and I stand by it.
Hmm.
History has shown active managers such as mutual funds do not outperform the market. In fact, 96% of actively managed funds
Hmm.
fail to outperform the market over a 15-year period. And
Wow.
they charge 2.5% in
Wow.
Canada, which is insane. There's very few mutual funds in Canada that
Hmm.
outperform a simple index fund. Like there's, I mean, like maybe a handful,
Hmm.
right? And so that's why I'm a big believer in index funds and ETFs, right? So
Awesome.
yeah.
Awesome. What